Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another episode of Worth the Hype, WTH, right? As you can see from the title, the topic today it's going to be on the MoonSwatch, right? Probably going to be one of the cheapest watch we have covered so far, right? So for those who are not aware, Swatch and Omega under the Swatch group have decided to release the collaborations between both companies under the principle to launch in a way a fun slash cheaper or more accessible variant of the Omega MoonSwatch, the legendary MoonSwatch, as you can tell by we talk about it in episode 2 as well. And this is very much kickstart a whole new category of watch that we have not seen prior to this, right? It's a extremely fun piece, extremely coveted back then as well. Queues were lined up overnight. It was 2022, I believe, and it was met resale price for this fetching over 2 to 3 times of MSRP, right? Essentially, it is a Swatch watch that is modeled after the Moonwatch, but internal, external, aside from aesthetics, it is very much a Swatch watch. It is a quartz watch. It is a plastic watch, and it's something that is not made to last, unfortunately. But we'll talk more about that. Before we proceed, anything you want to add in, Woody?
I still remember the days when this was launched, James. I think both you and I, we were like considering whether we should join the Mad Rush because there was a real hype behind this. But I think we were both, if I remember, turned off by the hype back then. And that's been years now. And well, all things considered, it's still going strong. So I think at the time of recording this episode, they are just about to launch or would have launched the very latest Moonshine Gold, which you see on screen here, the one in the middle. At the highest price point it's ever been as well. So it's going to be an interesting conversation, I believe, where we were almost bought into the hype. We decided to step away from it. I then eventually suckered into it a few years later. James hasn't, so credit to him. And so let's just see where we go with this episode.
Yeah, definitely. I think none of us, I don't think anyone expected the hype to be this enormous, right? I don't think even the lights of the Swatch group expected it as well. Because just to give context, when they first launched it, they say that this is not a limited edition. We will continue producing it. We will make it available online as well. However, the hype just went out of hand. People were pissed off. They couldn't get a stock. They queued out overnight, and online sales were immediately put on hold. And for the longest time, you can very much only get it in the physical store. And anytime there was a restock, there is bound to be an overnight queue as well. And every subsequent model launch, overnight queue as well. Which pretty much, like Woody said, turn us off because we are expecting for a Swatch to be able to walk in to buy a Swatch. At least, maybe not on the first day, but at least maybe a month or 2 months down the road, and we did not expect that hype train to last that long, right? But yeah, that it is. That's what it is. And we're talking about this 3 years later after the launch, and to give you insight, right? We're not talking about any specific model. We're just talking about the MoonSwatch in general for this particular episode, right? So without further ado, jumping straight into the criteria. You know the drill. The very first one: is it worth it at retail, right? Um, so this is going to be very interesting, right? Perhaps Woody will have a more relevant opinion as an owner of one. But for me, how I see it is that it's sort of a watch that if I were to put it on paper, what you pay, is it worth getting what you get out of the specs and the watch and everything? You're essentially getting a plastic watch, a quartz watch, and it is incredibly fragile as well. There's people who've mentioning the spring bars eventually, I mean, the lux eventually broke, caused by the spring bar. The glasses get scratched up tremendously until the point that it's no longer visible. And to replace any of this, you might as well buy a new watch entirely. Um, so with that being said, normally this would typically yield a 0 for me. However, I've also seen the other side of the MoonSwatch, the amount of fun that you are able to get from this, right? So like for any seasoned watch collector who just wants something to scratch the itch, who just wants something to be able to add into the collection, something fun that you could just bring it out, not worry about it, and with knowing that in your mind as well, even if it breaks down 2-3 years down the road, or maybe 3-5 years, depending on your mileage. And if you are okay with that, and knowing the fact that you spend this amount of price and this amount of price, this amount of cost, you will not recuperate at all, it is somewhat worth the fun that you're going to get out of it, right? So with that being said, I think depending on who you are, I can see a valid reason to own one for the sake of the fun of it. With that being said, I'll give it a 0.5. Right. Over to you, Woody.
So it's an interesting conundrum. If you ask me whether or not, as a typical watch where you expect, let's say, a higher end watch or anything that's made well, where you can kind of expect a long lifespan out of it and you can come back to it, whether it's a change of battery, whether it's a service, this isn't it. But then I ask myself this question, and I mean, there's a bias in there given that I am an owner as well. At that price point, will you get something of significant recognition in terms of it being tied to a very established timepiece, something that's quite recognizable, also immediately screams non-serious? You're meant to treat it like a fun piece anyway. And off the top of my head, the only other watch that falls within something of this price range that meets all that sort of criteria that's not a Swatch is a G-Shock, right? And so is it worth the 200, 300, 400 US dollar asking price? Arguable. The way I would look at it is this. If you're trying to treat it as a serious timepiece and you want this to last and, something you want to keep for a very long time, not worth it at all. But if you know what you're getting into, you know that it's meant to be a bit of fun, it's meant to be almost like a fashion piece that you put on every now and then. And I think the way to look at it as well is I don't know what better way to say it. It's just meant to be fun. If you can put it in that context and you don't break the bank to get it and you put the mind frame around all of that, I actually think there's an argument to be made. But if you're trying to save up for something better, I'd say save up for that. So I'm also in a camp where I think it's a half and half. So I'll give it 0.5 here. I don't think it's worth it as a long-term timepiece, but I think if you can afford it as something to have fun with as a watch enthusiast, by all means, go ahead. At that sort of asking price, very hard to find something else that has the level of brand recognition, the nod to a very popular luxury timepiece, done fairly well as well, done tastefully in terms of how they've opted for the different colors, the introduction of the Snoopy moon phase, and they even came out with a completely novel, albeit very smart complication called an Earth phase, where you just flip the moon phase around, right? I wouldn't even call it innovative. It's just smart that they were able to think of something like that. And they were probably the only ones that could get away with it, and they did. So kudos to them. But 0.5 for me in this regard.
Right. So I will add in a point towards that, right? So Woody, you mentioned saving up to get a more quote unquote legit timepieces. But let me put it in a scenario, right? Let's just say if someone who is a tremendous fan of the MoonSwatch due to the heritage, due to them being a fan of space explorations and so on. However, this person find that even the second-hand price of a MoonSwatch is very much out of reach. However, there is a alternative available right here, which is the Mission to Earth, right? Which is the one that very much looks the most similar to the Omega Moon watch. Is that going to be a good buy for this person? Because this person will say that more than 10 times the price of this is just out of my reach, and I don't want to spend it, but I can stomach the price of a MoonSwatch. And I don't mind changing it every 5 years and so on. And I'm very glad to own somewhat as close enough of a piece to a MoonSwatch. Do you think that is a good buy for this person?
That's a very interesting angle to go at it. I would say that from that angle, I say, yeah, honestly, this is a hobby that doesn't make any sense. You spend money that you shouldn't be spending, right? So if it's something to just dabble into and, see whether it works for you and you really don't want to spend the money, I would say definitely can, especially if you're a fan of the watch and you just like, I just cannot justify the thousands people are asking for. I just want to get a taste of it. I'd say yes. Although if you were to tell me that if it were my advice to you and whether you're still going to buy another watch, the challenge with saying yes to it is a terribly slippery slope. I think that won't be the first, won't be the last, and they'll probably end up buying a lot of others. And I think they will end up buying the MoonWatch anyway in due course. So as a entry point, yes, but beware. You are going to fall down that slippery slope. I almost can predict that with 100% certainty.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Good point. All right. Moving on next to the subsequent criteria, which is it worth it on the secondary market, right? So this very much tied to the point that I've mentioned, for me at least, very much tied to the point that I mentioned on the first criteria. This watch will not last, right? It's not built to last, and it is guaranteed to break down. It's just a matter of when, right? It could be 2 years for somebody, it could be 5 years for somebody, but you will not see the test of time, right? That's just what it is. That's factual, right? With that being said, there are good deals that could be found in the secondary market. So for something, for a piece that somebody has maybe owned for a year or so on, you would be able to get a discount. However, condition is going to be very, very tricky, right? How the strap, if you want the original strap, is notorious to break down. It get disintegrated after a certain amount of usage, right? So does it come with a subsequent strap? Do you need to then fork out additional cost to then buy a aftermarket strap, right? That's all something that you need to be aware of. And then because it's 1-2 years of usage down the road already, you can say perhaps that's 30% of the lifetime being drained out of it. Is the savings worth that 30% reduction in the total lifespan of the watch? That's something you need to factor in as well, right? So you need to do the math. If you estimate the watch could last 5 years, and if it's 2 years down the road, then that is 2 divided by 5. Is your savings the same amount of savings that is or more than the lifetime that you will lose out from the watch? That's something that you need to do the math with, right? If all things line and it still have a decent amount of life left and is well taken care of, and if it comes with a third party rubber straps and so on, even better. That is something perhaps you can consider. Otherwise, do not just look at I saved 20% out of this and just look at it blindly. So that's why for this, I'll give it a 0.5 as well. It's the conditions needs to line up really well for you to really get a good deal in the secondary market and to even consider it as well. All right. Over to you, Woody.
So I think the secondary market is an interesting one. So let me first go out there and say this, right? You should never, ever, ever pay over retail for this piece. This is a toy, right? So don't bother. Just if anyone's asking, even for the brand new one, they're saying that's very rare, hard to get, don't. Just wait for a time you can get it, or, I know there's some limited ones, but just don't pay over retail because it's not going to last. Second thing that I actually take inspiration of this from a previous episode from James' point of view as well. The type of people that would be selling this at a lower price, there are not that many that would have taken care of it very, very well. Now, let me explain this, right? It's not the crystal is easy to scratch, very easy to scratch. In fact, it's also very hard to baby this watch because it's plastic, you're bound to knock it around. It doesn't take well to be knocked around either. And given it's bioceramic, which is also a type of plastic, it's designed to disintegrate over time. I actually feel like if you're really going to get into this watch, buy it at retail, have the peace of mind. Don't bother at the secondary market. Don't feed the hype beast. Don't pay over premium for it. So in my respect, I would give this a 0. Just don't. I say don't buy it. Unless you're really, really lucky, a friend who bought it, took care of it really well. It's a very small subset. You just have to know the seller really well, someone you trust and it's really taken care of, most likely they will sell it at a discount to you and whatnot, then yes. But in most cases, if you're going to click on a Chrono 24, you go on a listing and you have to go and do all the homework to buy the seller for what is effectively a 200-300 timepiece, right? It's too much effort for it. I'd rather you just get it at retail, peace of mind. If something breaks within the first day or so, you at least have the peace of mind to go back to Swatch and say, hey, what the heck, But if it's buying from the second market, not worth it in my view. Back to you, James.
All right. Moving on to aesthetics, right? So I think for obviously for us as well, if you look at our scoring for the MoonWatch, the Omega MoonWatch, we like the design of that, right? It's a sort of a timeless chronograph design as well. So to a certain extent, the MoonSwatch inherits the design from that as well. So there is definitely credits, right? Given to the aesthetic of the overall timepieces. Now, when it comes to the funkiness of the MoonSwatch, right? The various 10,000 different colors of it, the different limited editions, you are spoiled for choice, right? And all those can also be viewed as very polarizing, right? So you could either be in a camp of, this is really weird, I can't match any outfit with this, I don't know where this stands, or if you or the other piece of lens that would be that these are very, very fun piece, very, very fun colors, very, very pleasing to just have a little spice of color that would just change things up a little bit, right? So aesthetic wise, I would say it's a little bit 50-50 here. You either like it or you don't. I think the design of how it looks, how the chronograph looks and stuff, I think arguably that's going to be really, really nice. But how everything else complements together with the colors and everything, I would say it's either you like it or you hate it. I'm leaning more towards in the camp of liking it. But because of that, I'll give it I'm sort of in the middle. So I'll give it a 0.5 as well. Right. Over to you, Woody.
So I think as a individual timepiece, first and foremost, you need to know that the entire case is identical, modeled after a actual MoonWatch. So proportions, everything is done exactly the same. The dial is a whole different thing altogether. There's the offset completely because it's an existing chronograph quartz time movement that Swatch has always used. Battery operated, the same spiel. So if you look at any of the existing chronographs, it's actually using the same movement. So it's not great from a dial balance perspective, but here's what I like about the aesthetics. I think this platform of the MoonSwatch has given Swatch and Omega a way to play around with colors. You'd find color combinations you normally wouldn't. And I think as the editions have gone further and further down the road, I think the initial 9 may have been a bit more polarizing, but as they evolved it further, the color combinations became more and more refined. And they've found that right balance. I'd argue even that the very latest one that's about to hit, or is just hit, is an encapsulation of how well they've been able to refine that color combination as well. They were probably saving this till the very end because they knew this was one of those that would probably work as well. I actually like these color combinations. It plays again to the fun, but as a dial, it's not balanced and whatnot, but you just know what you're getting into. And it's very rare you'll find something that's playful, done, executed quite well. So I'll give it a 0.5 because I actually don't think it's that great a dial, and it is ultimately quite cheap looking. But if you take the very latest where you have the Earth face, you have Snoopy and all that, I think it's done tastefully well. A lot of things going on, the sort of thing that enthusiasts sucker into, right? The more little knots you have everywhere, the nicer it is. It just puts a smile on people's faces. I think that's value into that. So I'll give it 0.5. But as a chronograph fan, no balance there at all. It's not the prettiest, and it'll never trump the real MoonWatch. But I think there's a good value in there in the aesthetics. Back to you, James.
All right. Now on horological features, right? Where do I start, right? So I think we talk about this in terms of how bioceramic is not going to last and so on. I mean, I think they did as great as a job as they can do on marketing it as bioceramic, which is essentially plastic. So props to that, but ultimately nothing good to say over here, right? The chrono pushers as well are known to break after several usage, so people are refraining to using the chronograph function as well, right? So I think that's all negative points towards this, right? Strap bad, case bad, chrono bad. So I mean, with that being said, I really have nothing else nice to say, but just give it a 0 over here, right? So just very much know what you're getting yourself into. It's a fun piece, is a fun looking timepiece that you can put it, add it into your day to day. You can sort of classify it as a fashion accessory as well. But horological features wise, it is what it is. Just none of that. So yeah, over to you, Woody.
I'll try and keep this short and sweet, right? With an analogy. This is let's say you're a fan of Lego, right? This particular, and maybe toys in general, even as an adult, an overgrown kid that you're looking at right here. This here is the watch enthusiast space of a McDonald's McValue meal. Whatever you get in there isn't great, right? It's still fun when you get it. It'll be fun for a while, but it's not going to last. There's nothing great in the features wise here either. It's all what it looks like on the outside. It's just like you compare a lot of the fake Lego and the real Lego. The real stuff, when you click it together, it clicks really well. These ones, it's like you're struggling to put things together. Things either fall apart, they don't stick very well. There's no horological feature there. Anybody else who calls it a feature is probably smoking their own pot. So, easy 0. Nothing else to say. McValue meal. That's what I'll call it. The toy that you get there. Back to you, James.
Right. I think moving on to wearability. I would say I'm very, very close to giving this a full mark, right? But one thing that, actually several things, but one of the major things that really stopped me from here is the strap, right? The strap that comes with it, at least the older ones. I think the newer ones they've improved the strap. It's a lot less rigid, a lot less stiff, and probably wears it very much nicely. That initial strap, the Velcro strap that comes with it, is horrendous, right? First of all, I don't think it looks good. I mean, it sort of mimic the astronaut strap and so on. I get where, from a design perspective, what they're trying to get into, but it is really incredibly stiff. You almost need to break it in order to like form it into a circular shape, right? Otherwise, it's just really, really stiff, and it really doesn't help in terms of wearability at all. And on top of that, as you force it to conform into a circular shape, it starts breaking down, which is why the aftermarket rubber strap, it's probably the number one choice for most people who own this. There's several other. You can probably get a cheap one from AliExpress as well, which has full integrated cutout, where it just fits into the watch locks seamlessly with no gaps, right? So with that being said, I think that's probably one of the main reason I can't score this a full mark for here. So yeah, 0.5 for me over here. Over to you.
So I think the challenge here is this. It's an interesting conundrum. As a plastic watch, it's very light. And because it's fun, I make the argument whenever you're buying something with a play on fun, wearability becomes less of a concern. You're wearing it a loud piece for or the weekend or something like that. And even if it wears you for a little bit, people just smile because people know what it is, right? So even as a member of the Tiny Wrist tribe, because it is mimicked after the very latest MoonSwatch as well, which has done quite a lot to ensure the minimal float, if you like. The conundrum here is this. As James already covered, you almost have to spend extra money to get a new strap. You almost always have to, right? And even in my case, I only enjoy it because I happen to have a very well-matched Nick Mankey anchor strap, hook strap. If not for that, I won't enjoy the wearability. The wearability out of the box for especially the original ones is terrible. That strap should just be burnt, in my view. You just take it out of the box and chuck it back in the box if you can. Find a strap that you have 20 millimeters, put it on, you almost will feel happier immediately after that. I think the latest ones, I haven't tried them myself, but I've heard good things about the latest straps, and I think that's where the upgrades are. If you're getting the newer ones, not the original 9, I think you will not face this problem. But it's not perfect out of the box most of the time. So just caveat that in mind. And because of that, I gave it a 0.5. It's not great, but once you get the right combination, and if you're already a watch enthusiast with straps lying around, I think you will find something that will work quite quickly. But it's just not wearable immediately out of the box. So can't get full marks from me there. Back to you, James.
Fair enough. I think that sums it up perfectly, and there's a great way to wrap it up, right? So if we tie it up together, it's a 2 for me and a 1.5. It brings it out to a 3.5 out of 10, but I have to caveat here as well, right? I personally think that even though with such a low score, it's less than half of it. There is what's that? There is very much a objective that it serves, right? Which is that if you're looking for a fun timepiece, you don't mind spending it, you can afford it, and you can classify it as like money's gone. I think there's a very much valid reason to get it for the fun of it, right? But just know that it's not for everybody, and just know what you're getting yourself into as well, and not buying something and expecting so much more than what it is, right? But yeah, so that's a big caveat for me. Any closing words from you, Woody?
I think at the end of the day, when we came up with this criteria, when we said anything below 4.5, we just said buy it if you really, really like it. So I think it fits the criteria. If you like it, you buy it, but just know what you're getting yourself into. It's the equivalent of a toy in a enthusiast space. So as long as you have that sort of disposable income, which not everybody has. So if you want to be responsible about it, don't. Actually, if you're going to be responsible for time getting into of taking care of your money, right? Just don't get into watches. Full stop. On that bombshell, I think it's back to you, James, to end the episode nicely.
All right. So yeah, I think we have run it like more than 10 episodes. It's been really, really lovely. I think we have very much revived the podcast all in all. I think from the viewerships and from the subscription as well, it's been taking off quite well. I'm going to say this again. If you have any comments or any requests or any critiques, plot it into the comment, be it Spotify, be it YouTube. We are here to listen. We very much take in all the past criticisms and critics as well. And yeah, we will continue to improve this podcast as we go. So until then, we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
See ya.